You either give your room to my wife or you pack your bags." My son Marcus yelled those words in the middle of the dinner I had prepared myself. He didn't whisper them, he didn't imply them, he shouted them in front of everyone as if he were giving an order to an employee, as if my room were negotiable, as if I didn't have the right to say no in my own home. Chantel, his wife, was sitting beside him with that small, controlled smile she used when she knew she was going to get her way. My sister-in-law, Thea, looked away uncomfortably but said nothing. My granddaughter Naomi pressed her lips together and bowed her head. No one defended me. No one said a word. And I, Celestine Vance, a 69-year-old widow, a devoted mother for decades, remained seated, feeling something strange break inside me. It wasn't sadness, nor was it rage. It was clarity. For the first time in a long time, I saw the situation exactly as it was. My son was kicking me out of my own room as if I were a hindrance that needed to be moved. I didn't cry, I didn't beg. I took a deep breath, placed my silverware on the table, and said in a voice so calm it surprised even me, "All right, Marcus, I'm going to pack my bags." The silence that followed was heavy. Marcus looked at me, confused, as if he had expected screaming or tears. Chantel let out a nervous laugh. Thea cleared her throat. Naomi looked up, surprised, but I had already risen, folded my napkin carefully, and was walking toward my room with my back straight. That night, while they were still in the dining room, pretending everything was normal, I was sitting on the edge of my bed with my phone in my hand. I wasn't weeping or paralyzed. I was looking for houses for sale on the coast. There was a listing that Doreen, my best friend, had sent me weeks ago via text. It was a small, charming house with a deck and an ocean view. She had written, "Celestine, check this out. Someday, you and I are going to have a house like this and toast while watching the sunset." I had replied with a laughing emoji, treating it like a distant fantasy. But that night, with the sound of clinking glasses and forced laughter drifting up from the dining room, I opened that message and looked at it with new eyes. The house was 2 hours from the city. It had 2 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a price that, although significant, fit perfectly within my savings. Savings I had accumulated for years. Years of working as a freelance accountant. Years of setting aside every dollar I could spare after paying the bills for this house. Years of saying no to trips, to little luxuries, to things I wanted for myself. Because there was always something more urgent. Marcus's college tuition, Marcus's car, Marcus's wedding, the rent for Marcus, and Chantel's apartment when they were short on cash. I took a screenshot of the listing, opened my banking app, and checked my balance. I had enough, more than enough, and for the first time in decades, I thought something that made me feel dizzy and free at the same time. This money is mine. The next morning, at 7 o'clock, I called the real estate agent. A young woman with a professional voice answered. I told her I wanted to see the property that very day. There was a brief pause, then she replied, "Perfect, Ms. Vance. I'll meet you there at 11. I confirmed, hung up, and stared at the phone screen as if I had just crossed an invisible line. Marcus came downstairs at 9, disheveled and yawning. He saw me sitting on the living room sofa and frowned. "Is breakfast ready?" "No," I replied without looking up. "I'm going out." "Where are you going so early?" "I have an appointment." He scoffed, opened the refrigerator, and began pulling things out as if the house already belonged to him. "Well, don't take too long. Chantel wants you to drive her to the mall later." "I won't be able to," I said, rising from the sofa before he could respond. Marcus looked at me strangely, but said nothing more. I went up to my room, which was now officially Chantel's, based on what happened the night before, and pulled clean clothes from my closet. I dressed calmly. A pair of jeans Doreen had convinced me to buy last month, a simple white blouse, my walking sneakers. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a 69-year-old woman who still had clarity in her eyes and decision in her jawline. I left the house at 10:30. Marcus was watching TV in the living room. Chantel was still asleep. No one asked where I was going. No one stopped me. I drove the 2 hours to the coast with the windows down and an old playlist of songs I used to listen to when I was young. It had been years since I had driven alone for so long. It had been years since I had done anything alone, in fact. There was always someone who needed something, always a call, a favor, an emergency. But that day, driving down the highway with the wind hitting my face, I felt light. I arrived at the house exactly at 11 o'clock. The real estate agent, Mr. Peterson, was already there, a man in his 50s with a white shirt and a kind smile. "Ms. Vance, what a pleasure. Please come in." The house was even prettier in person. Small, yes, but bright. The windows looked directly out at the ocean. The deck had enough space for a table and some chairs. I could imagine myself there, drinking coffee in the mornings, reading, listening to the waves. "What do you think?" the agent asked. "I think it's perfect," I replied. He smiled. "Would you like to think about it for a few days?" "No," I said. "I want to buy it now." The agent looked at me, surprised, as if he wasn't used to someone deciding so quickly. "Are you sure, Ms. Vance? It's a big decision." "I've been making decisions for 69 years, I told him. "This is the first one I'm making only for me." He nodded, still a little perplexed, but pulled the papers from his briefcase. He explained the details. The price was $280,000. I could arrange the transfer in 2 days. The house was debt-free and ready to close. I nodded as he spoke, but in my mind, I was already making calculations. I had $310,000 saved. I would keep $30,000 for whatever came up. I then signed the initial documents right there on the empty kitchen table of the house that already felt like mine. The agent gave me his card, explained the next steps, and said I could move in within 72 hours if I wished. "Perfect," I told him. "I want to move in 72 hours." I left the house with the temporary keys in my hand and stood on the deck watching the ocean. The waves came and went with a constant, predictable, calm rhythm. They didn't ask for anything. They didn't demand anything. They just existed. I took out my phone and snapped a picture of the horizon. I sent it to Doreen with a simple message. "I did it." She replied in seconds. "Did what?" "I bought the beach house." There was a long pause. Then the messages started pouring in, one after another. "You are not serious, Celestine. Answer me. You really bought the house? When? How? Does Marcus know?" I laughed to myself on that empty deck. "Marcus knows nothing," I wrote, "and I won't tell him until I'm already living here." Doreen called me immediately. I answered, and before I could speak, she was already shouting with excitement. "Celestine Vance, I cannot believe you did it! I am so proud of you! Tell me everything! What happened? What did Marcus say when you told him?" "I haven't told him anything yet," I replied. "Yesterday at dinner, he yelled that I either give Chantel my room or pack my bags, so I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to pack my bags and I'm leaving." Doreen was silent for a moment, then she sighed. "That boy has no idea who he messed with, does he?" "No," I said, looking out at the sea. "He has no idea." I drove back to the city that same afternoon. I drove slower, without rushing, enjoying the journey. When I arrived home, it was almost 6 o'clock in the evening. Marcus was in the living room watching a series on TV. Chantel was in the kitchen preparing something, using my pots, my stove, as if she already owned the place. "Where were you?" Marcus asked, without looking up from the screen. "Resolving things," I replied, and went straight up to my room. I closed the door and stood in the middle of the guest room, looking at everything I had accumulated over the years. Framed photos of Marcus as a child, the watch my husband gave me before he died, the quilt I had bought on a trip to the Bahamas, the books piled on the nightstand. Everything held a story, a memory, a piece of my life, but none of it made me feel at home. I pulled 2 large suitcases from the closet and began to pack. Clothes first, then shoes, important documents, jewelry, and photos that truly mattered to me, not the ones I kept out of obligation. I worked in silence for hours. No one came upstairs to ask what I was doing. No one knocked on the door. At 10 o'clock that night, Marcus yelled from downstairs, "Mom, are you going to make dinner or what?" "No," I yelled back. "Order something." There was a silence. Then I heard murmurs, probably Marcus complaining to Chantel, but they didn't come up. They didn't insist. They were used to me always giving in, always solving, always being available. I continued packing. The next day, very early, I called Doreen. "I need you to do me a huge favor," I said. "Anything," she replied. "I need you to come with me to the lawyer's office. I'm going to list this house for sale." There was a brief silence. Then Doreen said firmly, "I'll be there in half an hour." I ate breakfast alone in the kitchen. Marcus and Chantel were still sleeping in my room. I washed my mug, dried it, and put it away. Then I searched my phone for the contact of Brenda Wells, a lawyer I knew from my walking group. I texted her, "Brenda, I urgently need legal advice regarding property sale and wills. Do you have time this week?" She replied quickly, "I have time today at 4. Does that work?" "Perfect," I wrote. Doreen arrived exactly at 9 o'clock. She rang the doorbell, and I slipped out before Marcus came downstairs. We hugged at the door, and she looked into my eyes with that mix of worry and pride that only a friend of so many years can have. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "More sure than I've been about anything in my life," I replied. We went to the lawyer's office together. The process was quicker than I thought. I listed the house for sale at a fair market price, $580,000. The lawyer explained that at that price and location, it would probably sell in less than a month. "Perfect," I said. Doreen accompanied me to a cafe afterward. We sat at a window table and she ordered 2 lattes. "And now what?" she asked. "Now I wait for both properties to close," I said. "This house and the beach house, which is almost mine. When everything is ready, I'll leave. No dramatic goodbyes, no long explanations. I'll just go." "And Marcus?" "Marcus is going to have to learn to live without using his mother as a solution to all his problems." Doreen smiled and raised her cup. "I'll drink to that." We clinked our coffee cups as if they were champagne flutes. That afternoon, I went to my appointment with Brenda. Her office was small but tidy, full of legal books and perfectly labeled folders. She greeted me with a firm handshake and offered me water. "Tell me what you need, Celestine." I told her everything: the dinner, Marcus's yelling, buying the beach house, selling this house. She listened without interrupting, taking notes in a notepad. When I finished, she placed the pen on the desk and looked at me seriously. "Does Marcus know any of this?" "No," I replied, "and I don't want him to know until it's done." "Understood," Brenda said. "Legally, he doesn't have to know anything. The house is in your name. Your savings are yours. You're not married. You have no obligation to inform him about your financial decisions." "Good. But," Brenda continued, "I need you to think about something important. What if Marcus reacts poorly? What if he tries to sue you or claim something?" "Let him try," I said. "I owe him nothing. I gave him everything for 42 years. That's enough." Brenda nodded. "Then we'll do this right. I'm going to prepare a document that makes it clear your assets are yours and that any future transfer will be on your terms. I'm also going to update your will." "My will?" "Yes, because if something happens to you, I want you to have total control over who receives what. Is there anyone besides Marcus?" "My granddaughter, Naomi," I said. "She's always been different. She has always treated me with real affection, not obligation." "Perfect. We'll include her." I left that office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Control over my life, over my money, over my future. The following days in that house were strange. I was still living there, cooking, cleaning, doing the things I had always done, but something had changed. I no longer did it automatically. I did it knowing that every day that passed was one less day in that place. Marcus and Chantel had settled into my room as if it had always been theirs. Chantel reorganized the closet, moved the furniture, and hung her clothes where mine used to be. Marcus said nothing, didn't ask how I felt sleeping in the guest room, didn't ask if I was upset. He simply assumed I had accepted my place. One afternoon, while I was in the kitchen preparing dinner, Chantel came down with a handwritten list. "Celestine," she said without greeting me, "I need you to go to the grocery store and buy these things. Marcus and I are having some friends over on Saturday." She handed me the list. I read the items: expensive wine, imported cheeses, premium meats, desserts from a specific bakery. Everything easily totaled more than $250. "And who is going to pay for this?" I asked without looking up from the paper. Chantel looked at me as if the question were absurd. "Well, you, obviously. It's your house." "Ah," I replied, carefully folding the list. "I thought it wasn't my house anymore. I thought it was yours now." She frowned. "Don't start with the drama, Celestine. You know what I mean." "Yes, I know exactly what you mean," I said, handing the list back. "If you want to throw a party, fine, but you pay for it." Chantel's mouth dropped open in surprise. "What is wrong with you? Why are you acting like this?" "I'm not acting in any way," I replied calmly. "I'm just telling you that if you want to organize something, you organize it with your money." She scoffed and stormed out of the kitchen, yelling, "Marcus, your mother is being impossible." Marcus came down the stairs with a look of annoyance. "What's going on now?" "Your mother says she won't pay for the food for Saturday's gathering," Chantel said, crossing her arms. Marcus looked at me as if I were a spoiled child. "Mom, don't be difficult. It's just one meal." "Exactly," I said. "It's just one meal that you two can pay for." "And may I ask what is wrong with you lately?" Marcus asked, raising his voice. "You've been weird since last week. You snap back. You don't help. It seems like you're bothered that we're here." "I'm not bothered that you're here," I said, looking him straight in the eyes. "I'm bothered that you treat me as if I work for you." "No one is treating you like that," Chantel said. "Oh?" I asked. "Then what do you call what happened at dinner last week? What do you call shouting at me to pack my bags if I don't give you my room?" There was an awkward silence. Marcus looked away. Chantel pressed her lips together. "You were exaggerating, Mom," Marcus finally said. "I didn't yell at you. I just asked you to be reasonable." "You asked me to be reasonable," I repeated slowly, "by yelling at me in front of everyone." "It was a misunderstanding." Chantel intervened softly, that voice she used when she wanted to seem conciliatory. "We were all stressed. Marcus didn't mean to say it that way." "But he did say it that way," I replied. "And you kept my room, so I guess the misunderstanding worked out well for you." Marcus sighed. "You know what? I'm not going to argue this. If you don't want to help with the food, don't help. We'll figure it out ourselves." "Perfect," I said, and went back to what I was doing. They went back up to the room, murmuring to each other. I heard fragments. "She's unbearable. I don't know what's wrong with her. She wasn't like this before. They were right. I wasn't like that before. Before, I said yes to everything. Before, I apologized for things that weren't my fault. Before, I lived to please them." That night, after everyone fell asleep, I went down to the living room and sat on the sofa with my phone. I opened the chat with Doreen and wrote, "Every day I spend here, I realize how much time I lost being the person they wanted me to be." She replied immediately, despite the hour, "But you're not losing time anymore. You're reclaiming it." I smiled in the darkness of the living room. The next day, the real estate agent called me. "Ms. Vance, I have good news. 3 people are interested in viewing your house. Can we schedule showings for this week?" "Yes," I replied, "but I need them to be at specific times, between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, when my son is not here." The agent didn't ask anything. He just said, "Perfect. I'll organize everything and confirm with you." I hung up and looked at the phone. This was happening. It was really happening. On Wednesday, the first couple came to see the house. Marcus and Chantel had gone out to run errands. I greeted the agent and the potential buyers at the door. They were young, newly married, with that excitement in their eyes that comes with looking for your first home. I showed them every room, the spacious kitchen, the well-lit living room, the small but well-maintained yard. They asked questions, took photos, and measured spaces. Finally, at the door, they told me, "It's beautiful, ma'am. We'll think about it and let you know. 2 more visits came that week, all while Marcus was out. They all ended with the same phrase, "We'll think about it." On Friday, Brenda called me. "Celestine, the documents are ready. Can you come sign them?" "I'll come tomorrow," I said. Saturday morning, while Marcus and Chantel were still asleep, I left the house and drove to Brenda's office. She greeted me with fresh coffee and a thick folder full of papers. "This is your updated will," she said, pointing to the first document. "Naomi receives 60% of your assets. Marcus receives 40%. And here is the clause that specifies that if anyone tries to contest the will, they automatically forfeit their share." I signed each page, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief because I was protecting what was mine. Sadness because I had to protect myself from my own son. "How do you feel?" Brenda asked when I finished signing. "Like I'm finally waking up," I replied. That afternoon, when I returned home, Marcus and Chantel were in the living room arguing in low voices. When they saw me enter, they immediately stopped. "Where were you?" Marcus asked. "Out," I replied without giving details. "Out where?" Chantel insisted. "Resolving things." He looked at me with distrust, but didn't press. Chantel, however, had that look she got when she was planning something. "Celestine," she said, her voice sweet, "we need to talk to you about something important." I sat in the armchair across from them. "What is it?" "We got evicted from the apartment," Chantel said directly. "The owner wants to sell, and we have to be out in 2 weeks." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "Are you already looking for another place?" "Well," Marcus said, "we thought we could stay here for a while. After all, there's plenty of space here." "Exactly," Chantel said. "It wouldn't be forever, just until we find something. A few months, maybe." I looked into her eyes, then at Marcus. Both looked back with that mixture of expectation and entitlement disguised as need. "No," I simply said. "What?" Marcus asked. "What? No, you cannot stay here." "Mom," Marcus said, raising his voice. "We're your family. Are you going to leave us out on the street?" "I'm not going to leave you out on the street," I replied calmly. "I'm going to let you solve your problems like the adults you are." Marcus stood up abruptly. "I can't believe what I'm hearing. What is wrong with you, Mom? Since when are you so selfish?" "Selfish," I repeated the word slowly, letting it resonate in the air. "It's interesting you use that word." "And what else do you want me to call it?" he said, throwing up his hands. "You have this huge house all to yourself, and you won't help your own son." "This house is not huge, Marcus. It has 3 bedrooms. One is mine, which you now occupy. Another is the guest room where I sleep now. And the third is my home office where I work." "Well, turn the office into a bedroom," Chantel said. "It's not that hard." I stared at her. "My office is where I earn the money that pays for this house. Where do you suggest I work? In the kitchen?" "Don't be dramatic," Marcus said. "You always exaggerate everything." I took a deep breath. "I'm not going to argue this. The answer is no." "Mom," Marcus said, changing his tone, now softer, more manipulative. "I know you've been stressed lately. I know maybe I said things I shouldn't have at dinner, but we're family. Families help each other." "Families respect each other," I replied, "and you haven't respected me in a long time." "That's not true." "Oh?" I asked. "What do you call yelling at me to pack my bags if I don't give you my room? Respect?" "I already apologized for that," he lied. He hadn't said it. He had never said it. But I knew inventing it was his way of trying to escape the conversation. "No, Marcus, you didn't apologize. You didn't even acknowledge you did it." Chantel intervened with that victim voice she used so well. "Celestine, we really are in a difficult situation. We have nowhere to go. Are you truly going to turn your back on us?" "You are adults with jobs," I replied. "You can rent another place. You can take out a loan. You can do what millions of people do when they need housing." "But you're their mother," Chantel insisted. "Mothers are supposed to help." "And I did," I said, rising from the armchair. I helped you for 42 years. I paid your college tuition, Marcus. I bought you your first car. I lent you money for the wedding. I've helped you with rent more times than I can count. I have helped enough." "I can't believe you're being this way," Marcus said, his voice trembling, feigning to be on the verge of tears. "My own mother denying me a roof over my head." "I'm not denying you a roof," I said, walking toward the stairs. "I'm denying you my roof. There's a difference." I went up to my room, the guest room, and locked the door. I heard Marcus and Chantel talking downstairs, their voices rising in volume. I caught scattered words: ungrateful, selfish, cruel old woman. I sat on the bed and opened my phone. I texted Doreen. "It just happened. They asked to move in. I told them no." She replied with an audio message. Her voice sounded proud. "Celestine Vance, you are my hero. How did they take it?" "As I expected," I wrote. "Yelling, threats, drama. Are you okay?" "I am perfect," I said, and was surprised to realize it was true. That night, Marcus and Chantel went out without telling me where they were going. They returned late, past midnight. I heard them go up the stairs, enter my old room, and close the door harder than necessary. Sunday morning, I woke up early, as usual. I went down to the kitchen and made coffee just for myself. I no longer made breakfast for everyone. I no longer set the table for 3. I only poured my mug, prepared my toast and my fruit. Marcus came down around 11, looking like he hadn't slept well. He saw me sitting at the table reading the news on my tablet and said nothing. He went straight to the coffee maker, served himself, and stood leaning on the counter, staring at me. "What?" I asked without looking up. "Nothing," he said. "I just wonder what happened to you." "What happened to me?" I repeated. "Yes. You were different before. Before, you cared about your family." I put the tablet on the table and looked directly at him. Before, I cared so much about my family that I forgot about myself. That's the difference. He scoffed. "That sounds like something you read in a cheap self-help book." "It sounds like something I should have understood 30 years ago," I replied. Marcus slammed his mug down on the counter. "You know what, Mom? Do whatever you want. After all, you've always done what you wanted." I laughed. It was a short, almost bitter laugh. "Marcus, if I had done what I wanted, I would have traveled the world when your dad died. I would have earned the master's degree I always wanted. I would have lived alone and peacefully, but no. I stayed here taking care of you, helping you, waiting for you to value me even a little." "I do value you," he said, but without conviction. "No, Marcus, you use me. And there's a huge difference between valuing and using." He went silent. He had no answer for that, because he knew it was true. Chantel came down a few minutes later, already dressed, with perfect makeup and that air of superiority she always carried. "Good morning," she said, without looking at me. "Good morning," I replied. She served herself coffee and sat next to Marcus. Both ignored me, talking to each other in low voices as if I weren't there. "Celestine," Chantel said suddenly, "we need to use your car today. Ours is having trouble." "No," I said. "What do you mean, no? You're not going to lend us your car? And how are we supposed to get around?" Marcus asked. "By taxi, by Uber, by walking, like everyone else." Chantel let out a dry laugh. "Unbelievable. First, you won't let us stay here, and now you won't lend us the car either. What's next? Are you going to charge us for the air we breathe in your house? If you like, you can leave right now and breathe the air somewhere else," I said, without getting flustered. Marcus pounded the table. "Stop it! Just stop it, Mom. I don't know what's wrong with you, but this is too much." "What's wrong with me, Marcus, is that I got tired. I got tired of being invisible. I got tired of being treated like a maid. I got tired of you assuming that everything I have is yours." "No one assumes that," Chantel lied. "Oh?" I asked. "Then tell me, Chantel, why are you sleeping in my room? Why do you use my kitchen as if it were yours? Why do you assume I'm going to pay for your parties and lend you my things?" She opened her mouth but said nothing. I got up from the table, washed my mug, and left the kitchen. I went up to my room and locked the door. I sat on the bed and took several deep breaths. My phone rang. It was a message from the real estate agent. "Ms. Vance, the young couple who came on Wednesday wants to make an offer. $565,000. Are you interested?" I replied immediately. "Yes, I accept." "Perfect," he wrote. "I'll prepare the papers. We can close the sale in 1 week." 1 week. In 1 week, this house would no longer be mine, and Marcus had no idea. That afternoon, while they were upstairs, I went down to the living room and started discreetly packing things. Photos I truly wanted to keep, books I cared about, documents. I stored everything in boxes that I hid in the guest room closet. Marcus and Chantel didn't notice anything. They were too busy with their own drama. Monday morning, while Marcus and Chantel were still sleeping, I left the house with 3 boxes in the car. I took them to a storage unit I had rented the week before. It was a small space, enough to store the essentials until I moved permanently to the beach house. The employee at the storage facility helped me register my name and handed me the keys. "Are you moving a lot of things?" she asked kindly. "Just the important stuff," I replied. I returned home before noon. Marcus was in the living room with his laptop, working from the sofa. He saw me enter, but said nothing. I went straight up to my temporary room and continued organizing. That afternoon, I received a message from Brenda. "Celestine, the buyer of your house wants to expedite the closing. It can be ready for Thursday. Does that work for you?" I stared at the message for several seconds. Thursday, 3 days. In 3 days, this house would officially cease to be mine. "Perfect," I wrote. "Thursday is fine." I immediately called Doreen. "I need you to come with me on Thursday to sign the sale of the house." "I'll be there," she said without hesitation. "Do you know when you'll move to the beach?" "Friday," I replied. "I'll sign the sale on Thursday, and on Friday I'm leaving. And Marcus is going to find out Thursday night when there's no turning back." Doreen was silent for a moment. "Are you sure you want to do it that way?" "Completely sure," I said. "If I tell him before, he'll try to manipulate me, guilt me, convince me not to do it. I've made my decision, and I won't let him change it." "You're right," Doreen said. "You are stronger than you think, Celestine." "I'm learning to be," I replied. The following days were strange. I was still living in that house, walking the halls, cooking in the kitchen, but mentally, I wasn't there anymore. I was at the beach, in my new house, in my new life. Marcus and Chantel noticed my distance, but they interpreted it as passing anger. They thought it would eventually blow over, that I would go back to being the compliant mother I always was. On Tuesday, Chantel tried a different strategy. She came into the kitchen while I was preparing food with a forced smile on her face. "Celestine," she said sweetly, "I know things have been tense lately, and I want you to know I'm sorry." I looked at her without saying anything. "Really," she continued, "Marcus and I have been very stressed about the apartment, and I don't think we've been fair to you. What I want to say is that we value everything you do for us, and we want to make it up to you." "Make it up to me?" I asked. "Yes," she said, pulling out her phone. "Look, I found this spa that has a full-day package, massages, a facial, everything. I thought we could go together this weekend, just you and me, like friends." I looked her straight in the eyes. "Who is going to pay for that spa, Chantel?" She blinked uncomfortably. "Well, I thought maybe you could treat me, as a gesture of—" I interrupted her. "I am not going to invite you to any spa." Her smile vanished. "It was just an idea," she said sharply. "You don't have to be rude." "I'm not being rude," I replied. "I'm being clear. I'm not going to spend my money buying you things so you'll pretend to appreciate me." She opened her mouth, offended. "I'm not pretending anything." "Yes, you are, Chantel, and we both know it." She left the kitchen muttering something I couldn't catch. I didn't care. Wednesday night, Marcus attempted his own approach. He knocked on my door around 10 o'clock. "Can I come in?" he asked. "Come in," I said. He entered and sat on the edge of the bed. I was folding clothes, putting the last few things into my suitcase. "Mom," he said, his voice tired, "I don't want us to be fighting." "We're not fighting, Marcus," I replied without looking at him. "I'm simply no longer willing to let you disrespect me." "I never meant to disrespect you." "But you did," I said, stopping and looking at him. "You did when you yelled at me at dinner. You did when you took my room without asking if I was okay. You did every time you assumed I would solve your problems." He ran his hands over his face. "I don't know what else you want me to do. I already told you I'm sorry." "You haven't said you're sorry, Marcus. You've said you're sorry that I'm upset. It's not the same thing." He fell silent. "You know what the problem is?" I continued. "You think that saying I'm sorry magically makes everything go back to normal, but it doesn't work that way. You can't disrespect me and expect me to just forget it." "It wasn't my intention to make you feel bad," he said, and for the first time he sounded genuine. "But you did," I replied, "and intentions don't change the damage." He nodded slowly. "What can I do to fix it?" "Nothing, Marcus. It's too late to fix it." He looked at me, confused. "What does that mean?" "It means I've already made decisions about my life and I'm not going to change them." "What decisions?" "You'll find out soon enough," I said, and went back to folding clothes. He stayed there for a few more minutes, waiting for me to say something else, but I didn't. Finally, he got up and left the room, closing the door softly. I barely slept that night. Tomorrow was Thursday. Tomorrow I was signing the sale. Tomorrow everything would change. I woke up early, dressed carefully, black pants, a white blouse, my pearl earrings. I wanted to look good, feel good for this moment. I went down to the kitchen and made coffee. Marcus and Chantel were still sleeping. I left a note on the table. "Out, resolving some matters. Back this afternoon." Doreen picked me up exactly at 9 o'clock. I got into her car, and before starting the engine, she looked at me seriously. "Ready?" "More than ready," I replied. We drove straight to the closing attorney's office. The buyer was already there, a young man in his mid-30s with his wife. We greeted each other formally and sat around the notary's table. The attorney read all the documents in that monotonous voice lawyers have. He explained the terms, the conditions, the dates. The buyer was paying $565,000. The transaction would be completed today. I had until Sunday to completely vacate the property. "Any questions?" the attorney asked. "None," I replied. I signed each page, one after the other, my name in cursive, Celestine Vance, sealing the end of an era. When I finished, the attorney handed me a check, $565,000. I held it in my hands, feeling the weight of freedom. Doreen squeezed my hand under the table. We left the office around noon. Doreen hugged me on the street. "You did it," she said. "You really did it." "Yes," I replied, and was surprised to feel tears in my eyes. They weren't tears of sadness. They were of relief. "Do you want to grab lunch before we go back?" Doreen asked. "Yes," I said. "I want to celebrate." We went to a small restaurant we liked, one with a view of a park. We ordered white wine and pasta. We toasted to new beginnings. "When are you going to tell him?" Doreen asked. "Tonight," I replied, "when I get home." "Do you want me to come with you?" "No," I said. "I have to do this alone." I returned home around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Marcus's car was parked outside. I took a deep breath before opening the door. I entered the house and found Marcus and Chantel in the living room watching TV. They looked up when they saw me arrive. "Where were you?" Marcus asked. "Resolving matters," I replied, putting my bag on the dining table. "What matters?" Chantel insisted. "Mine," I said simply. She gave me that look of annoyance that I knew so well, but said nothing more. I went up to my room and sat on the bed for several minutes, mentally preparing for what was coming. At 7 o'clock, I went downstairs again. Marcus was in the kitchen making a sandwich. Chantel was still in the living room with her phone. "Marcus, Chantel," I said from the kitchen doorway. "I need to talk to you." Marcus put the knife down on the counter. "About what?" "Come to the living room, please." They both followed me with expressions of curiosity mixed with irritation. We sat down, they on the sofa, I in the single armchair. I took a deep breath and spoke in a clear, firm voice. "I sold the house." There was an absolute silence. Marcus looked at me as if he hadn't understood the words. Chantel blinked several times. "What did you say?" Marcus finally asked. "I said I sold the house. I signed the papers this morning. The new owners take possession on Sunday." Marcus stood up abruptly. "What? You can't do that." "I already did," I replied calmly. "This is my home," he yelled. "I grew up here. You can't sell it without consulting me." "This house is in my name, Marcus. I don't need to consult you about anything." Chantel also stood up. Wait, and where exactly are we supposed to live?" "That is your problem, not mine," I replied. "Our problem?" Marcus repeated, incredulous. "Mom, you just left us homeless." "You were already homeless here a week ago when I told you you couldn't stay. You just didn't believe me." "This cannot be happening," Chantel said, pacing. "This has to be a joke." "It's not a joke," I said. "You have until Sunday to get your things out." "No," Marcus shouted. "I won't accept this. I'm going to talk to a lawyer. I'm going to contest the sale." "You can try," I replied. "But the house was in my name. There's no debt, no mortgage, and the sale is completely legal. I already consulted with my attorney." "Your attorney?" Marcus asked. "Since when do you have an attorney?" "Since I decided it was time to protect what is mine." Chantel pointed a finger at me. "You are selfish. A cruel, selfish old woman." I looked at her without blinking. "Tell me, Chantel, am I selfish because I sold my house? Or am I selfish because I wouldn't allow you to keep using me?" "We are using you," Marcus shouted. "We are your family. And I am your mother, not your solution for every one of your problems." Marcus ran his hands through his hair, clearly desperate. "Mom, please, there has to be a way to fix this. Cancel the sale. Tell them you changed your mind." "I'm not canceling anything, but we have nowhere to go." "Then start looking," I said, rising from the armchair. "You have 3 days." Marcus blocked my path. "I'm not letting you do this." "Move, Marcus," I said, my voice low but firm. "Not until you explain what the hell is wrong with you. Who are you? Because this person is not my mother." "You're right," I replied. "This is not the mother you knew. That mother got tired of being invisible. This mother decided to live for herself." I gently pushed him aside and went up the stairs. I heard Chantel yelling downstairs. "This isn't over. We'll sue you." "Go ahead," I shouted from above. "Talk to all the lawyers you want." I entered my room and locked the door. I sat on the bed and waited for my heart to stop beating so fast. I had done it. I had told them the truth, and the sky hadn't fallen. My phone rang. It was Doreen. "Did you tell them?" "Yes," I replied. "How did they react?" "As expected. Yelling, threats, drama." "Are you okay?" "I'm perfect," I said, and I was surprised to realize it was true. I didn't sleep well that night. I heard Marcus and Chantel arguing late into the night, their voices rising and falling, alternating between rage and panic. At one point, I heard Chantel crying. Marcus called someone on the phone, probably a lawyer, but from what I could hear, they told him the same thing I already knew. The sale was legal. Friday morning, I went down to the kitchen early. Marcus was already there, sitting at the table with a mug of cold coffee in front of him. He had deep circles under his eyes, and his hair was messy. "Mom," he said when he saw me, "we need to talk." "We talked yesterday," I replied, pouring myself coffee. "No, really talk. Without yelling, please." I sat across from him. "Talk." "I know I was wrong," he said, looking into his mug. "I know I said awful things. I know I treated you badly." "Yes, you did. And I'm sorry." I really am. I looked into his eyes, searching for sincerity. I found desperation. Marcus, I said softly, the problem isn't just what you said at dinner. The problem is that dinner was just the last straw. It's been years of you treating me as if I exist only to solve your problems. It's not like that, he protested weakly. Yes, it is, I insisted. When was the last time you asked me how I was? When was the last time you visited me just because you wanted to see me, not because you needed something? He fell silent. Exactly, I said. You don't remember because it never happened. I'll change, he said. I promise. I'll be a better son. I don't need you to be a better son, Marcus. It's too late for that. What I need is to live my life without feeling like I owe something to someone all the time. And what am I supposed to do? He asked. And for the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. What all adults do, I replied. Figure it out. Chantel came downstairs at that moment, also with dark circles, also messy. She looked at both of us and then served herself coffee without a word. The atmosphere in the house that Friday was tense and silent. Marcus and Chantel spent most of the day in their room, on the phone, looking for apartments, talking to potential landlords, moving their small life from one place to another. I continued calmly packing my things. Every object I put away was one step closer to my freedom. In the middle of the afternoon, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Miss Vance, said a young woman's voice. Yes, this is she. It's Naomi, Grandma. My granddaughter, the only person in this whole family who had treated me with genuine affection. Hello, my love, I said, feeling my voice soften. Grandma, she said, and she sounded worried. My dad called me. He said you sold the house. Yes, Naomi, I sold it. It's completely true. There was a pause. Then she said, Good. Good? I asked, surprised. Yes, good. I heard what my dad said to you at dinner last week. I was there, remember? I was embarrassed. I was angry, but I didn't know what to say. What you did is right, Grandma, Naomi continued. You deserve to live your life. You deserve respect. And if my dad won't give it to you, then you deserve to walk away. Thank you, my love, I said, my voice cracking. Where are you going? She asked. I bought a house on the coast, I replied, small, quiet, with a view of the ocean. That sounds beautiful. It is. Can I visit you? She asked timidly. Whenever you want, Naomi. You will always be welcome. After hanging up with Naomi, I sat in my room looking out the window. Hearing her support had been like receiving a hug after days of coldness. At least someone in this family understood. Saturday dawned cloudy. I woke up early and continued packing. I already had 4 full suitcases and 6 closed boxes. Doreen was coming later to help me take everything to the storage unit. I went down to the kitchen and found Chantel sitting at the table with her laptop open. Her eyes were red as if she had been crying all night. Good morning, I said neutrally. She didn't even look up. She didn't reply. I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter. The silence was dense, uncomfortable. We found an apartment, Chantel finally said without looking at me. It's awful, small, old, in a bad area, but it's the only thing we can afford. I said nothing. It costs $1,800 a month, she continued, more than double what we were paying before, and they require 3 months' rent up front. That's $5,400 we don't have. She kept talking as if I were going to offer help, as if all of this were a negotiation. We're going to have to borrow money, she said, finally looking at me, probably from my sister, who will never let us forget that she had to rescue us. You're still waiting for me to offer to pay for it, aren't you? I asked. You're his mother, Chantel replied. I thought you would at least care. I do care about Marcus, I said. What I don't care about is continuing to be his permanent solution to problems he creates himself. We didn't create this, she said, raising her voice. You created this. You left us homeless. You had a home, I replied calmly. An apartment you rented, which you lost because you couldn't pay. That's not my fault. We could have stayed here. No, you couldn't. This is my house, and I chose to sell it. You're cruel, Chantel said, her voice trembling. I always thought you were a good person, but you're cruel. I looked directly at her. Do you know what is cruel, Chantel? Cruel is yelling at someone to pack their bags in their own home. Cruel is taking someone's room without asking them. Cruel is assuming someone exists only to serve you. I never did that. Yes, you did. From the day you entered this family, you treated me like an employee, not a mother-in-law. Chantel slammed her laptop shut. I'm not going to argue with you anymore. Fine. You win. You've humiliated us. You've made it clear you don't want us here. This isn't about wanting or not wanting you, I said. It's about me no longer sacrificing my peace for your comfort. She took her laptop and left the kitchen without another word. Doreen arrived at 10 o'clock that morning in her SUV. Between the two of us, we started carrying the boxes and suitcases downstairs. Marcus came out of his room when he heard the noise. What are you doing? He asked. Taking my things to the storage unit, I replied. You're not going to wait until tomorrow? There's no reason to wait. He stood on the stairs, watching me carry down one box after another. He didn't offer to help, he just watched with an expression somewhere between confused and hurt. Doreen and I made 3 trips to the storage unit. On the last one, as we closed the tailgate of the SUV, Doreen said, Tomorrow is the big day. Tomorrow I leave, I confirmed. How do you feel? Light, I replied, as if I had shed a weight I'd been carrying for decades. We returned to the house at noon. Marcus and Chantel were packing too. I saw boxes in the living room, clothes piled up, scattered objects. The house that had been my home for so many years now looked like a place being dismantled. I went up to my room and pulled the last few things from the drawers. Old photos, letters, documents, everything fit into a small box. It was surprising how little I actually needed. That evening, I prepared dinner just for myself, a simple plate of pasta. Marcus and Chantel ordered takeout and ate in their room. We didn't see each other all afternoon. Around 9 o'clock, someone knocked on my door. It was Marcus. Can I come in? Go ahead. He entered and stood by the door, uncomfortable. You're leaving tomorrow, he said. Yes. Do you know where you're going? To the coast. You bought another house? Yes. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, How long have you been planning this? Since the night of the dinner, I replied. Since you yelled at me. Marcus looked down. I didn't think you would go this far. Me neither, I admitted. But when I made the decision, I knew it was the right one. Is there anything I can say to make you change your mind? No, Marcus, not anymore. He nodded slowly. Are you going to be okay, alone in a new house, away from everything? I'm going to be better than ever, I said with conviction. And us? You're going to have to learn to be okay without me. Marcus ran his hand over his face. He was silent for so long that I thought he had left without me noticing, but he was still there, leaning against the wall. I'm sorry I failed you, he finally said in a low voice. I looked at him and saw something I hadn't seen in years, genuine vulnerability. I'm sorry for many things too, Marcus, I replied. I'm sorry I didn't set boundaries sooner. I'm sorry I let you treat me this way for so long. I'm sorry I confused love with sacrifice. He looked up. You don't love me anymore. I do love you, I said. You are my son, and I will always love you. But I'm no longer going to let that love destroy me. Marcus nodded, his eyes glistening. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this. His words hurt, but not like before. They didn't pierce my chest with paralyzing guilt. They just hurt the way uncomfortable truth hurts. That's okay, Marcus, I said. I don't need your forgiveness. I need my peace. He left the room, closing the door softly. I slept deeply that night for the first time in weeks. There was no anxiety, no insomnia, no tossing and turning, wondering if I was doing the right thing. I knew I was. Sunday dawned sunny. I woke up at 6, showered, dressed in comfortable travel clothes, brought down my last 2 suitcases and placed them by the door. Marcus and Chantel were still asleep. Doreen arrived punctually at 7. We loaded the suitcases into her SUV. Then I went back inside the house for one last walkthrough. I walked through every room: the living room where Marcus had taken his first steps, the kitchen where I had prepared thousands of meals, the yard where my husband used to read the paper on Sundays. Every corner held memories, but none of those memories made me want to stay. I went up to what had been my room. Chantel had transformed everything. She had changed the curtains, moved the furniture, hung new pictures. There was nothing left of mine in there. Perfect, I thought. I went downstairs and found Marcus in the living room. He had woken up and was standing there in his pajamas, looking like he hadn't slept. "You're leaving now?" he asked. "Yes. Can I have your new address?" "I'm going to give it to Naomi," I replied. "If she decides to share it with you, that's her decision." Marcus clenched his jaw. "Is that how things are going to be now?" "That's how things are going to be until you can prove to me that you can respect my boundaries." He didn't respond. I walked toward the door. Before stepping outside, I turned one last time. "Take care, Marcus." "You too, Mom," he said, his voice breaking. I left the house and closed the door behind me. I didn't look back. There were no tears, just a long, liberating sigh. Doreen was waiting for me in the SUV with a huge smile. "Ready for your new life?" "More than ready," I replied. We drove the 2 hours to the coast, listening to music, laughing, planning everything we were going to do in the new house. Doreen was staying with me for the weekend to help me settle in. We arrived at the beach house around 10 o'clock in the morning. The sun was shining over the ocean, and the sound of the waves was the only thing I could hear. Doreen turned off the engine, and we both sat for a moment, looking at the house. "It's yours," Doreen said. "It's mine," I repeated, and the words sounded incredible. We got out of the SUV, and I opened the front door with my keys. The house smelled clean, like a new beginning. The windows let in natural light that illuminated every corner. It was small, but perfect. Doreen and I spent the rest of the day unpacking. We put my clothes in the closet, arranged the furniture I had bought the week before, and hung some photos on the walls. By the afternoon, the house already felt like a home. We sat on the deck with a bottle of white wine, watching the sunset. The sky painted itself in oranges and pinks as the sun sank below the horizon. "I toast to you," Doreen said, raising her glass. "To the bravest woman I know." We clinked glasses and drank in silence. "Do you think Marcus is okay?" I asked after a while. "He'll eventually be fine," Doreen replied. "But that's not your responsibility, Celestine." "I know, but he's still my son. And you are still a person who deserves to live without guilt." She was right. I knew it. But decades of being a mother don't just disappear overnight. That night, after Doreen went to sleep in the guest room, I sat alone on the deck, looking at the stars. I took out my phone and snapped a picture of the dark sea, illuminated only by the moon. I sent it to Naomi with a message. I made it home. She replied immediately with a heart emoji and then, "I am so happy, Grandma. I'm going to visit you soon." I smiled at the screen. Then another message arrived. It was from a number I didn't have saved, but I recognized the area code. It was Marcus. "Mom," the message read, "Chantel and I got the apartment. We're moving in tomorrow. Just wanted you to know." I didn't reply, not because I wanted to be cruel, but because there was nothing to say. Another message arrived 5 minutes later. "I know you're angry, and I understand, but I hope we can talk someday." I put the phone away and looked back at the sea. The following days were filled with a peace I hadn't experienced in years. I woke up to the sound of the waves, had breakfast on the deck, walked along the beach, read, and cooked only for myself. There was no yelling, no demands, no guilt. Doreen stayed with me all week. In the afternoons, we walked along the boardwalk, visited local markets, and tried small restaurants. It was like being on permanent vacation. On Wednesday, while we were having coffee at a cafe overlooking the ocean, my phone rang. It was Thea, my sister-in-law. "Celestine," she said when I answered, "I need to talk to you." "Hello, Thea, what's going on?" "Mark has told me everything, about the house, the move, everything." "Uh-huh," I said, bracing myself for the lecture. "And I want you to know that I'm on your side." I was silent, surprised. "What Marcus did to you at that dinner was awful," Thea continued. "I was there. I heard it, and I was ashamed that I didn't say anything, but I was in shock. I couldn't believe my nephew spoke to his mother like that." "Thank you for telling me that," I replied, feeling relieved. "You did the right thing by leaving," she said. "You did the right thing by selling the house. Sometimes family hurts you more than strangers, and you don't have to stay just because they're family." Thea and I talked for almost an hour. She told me she had spoken to Marcus, that she had told him exactly what she thought of his behavior, and that Marcus had been defensive at first, but had eventually admitted he was wrong. "He's scared," Thea said, "scared of having lost you. But he still doesn't understand that he caused this himself." "Someday he will understand," I said. "Or maybe he won't, but it's no longer my problem." When I hung up, Doreen looked at me curiously. "Who was that?" "Thea," I replied. "She called to tell me I did the right thing." Doreen smiled. "The world is aligning in your favor, Celestine." That afternoon, while we were walking on the beach, I received another message, this time from Chantel. It was a long message. She started by saying she never thought things would go this far, that she too had grown up with a difficult mother, and perhaps that's why she didn't realize when she crossed boundaries, and that she regretted making me feel invisible in my own home. She didn't apologize directly, but she came close. "I don't know if Marcus and you can fix things," she wrote at the end, "but I want you to know that I understand why you left." I read the message 3 times, then showed it to Doreen. "Are you going to answer?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "I need time to process." Doreen nodded. "You have all the time in the world." On Friday, Naomi video called me. Her face appeared on the screen with a huge smile. "Grandma," she said, "you look great. You look happy." "I feel happy," I replied. I turned my phone to show her the view of the ocean from the deck. She cried out with excitement, "It's beautiful, Grandma. I'm so proud of you." "Thank you, my love. How are you?" "Good," she said. "I went to help my dad with the move yesterday. The apartment is small, but it's clean. I think they're going to be okay." "I'm glad to hear that." "Dad asks about you," Naomi said hesitantly. "He doesn't know if he should call you or give you space." "Tell him he can call me when he's ready to have a real conversation," I replied. "No yelling, no manipulation, just honesty." Naomi nodded. "I'll tell him." We spent the rest of the video call talking about her classes, her work, her life. She told me she had started therapy to process some things about her family. She said her therapist told her it was important to set healthy boundaries. "Just like you, Grandma," she said. "You set boundaries and respected yourself. That's what I'm learning too." I felt proud of her. Saturday afternoon, Doreen had to return to the city. We said goodbye with a long hug at the door. "Are you going to be okay alone?" she asked. "I'm going to be perfect," I replied. "If you need me, call me anytime." "I know." I watched her drive away in her SUV and then went back into my house. My house. Those words still filled me with wonder. That night, sitting on the deck with a glass of wine, my phone rang. It was Marcus. I hesitated before answering. Finally, I slid my finger across the screen. "Hello, Marcus." "Hello, Mom," he said. He sounded tired. "Can I talk to you?" "Go ahead." There was a long pause. Then I heard him take a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking this week. About what happened, about what I said, about how I treated you." "I'm listening," I said, offering no easy way out. "You were right," he finally said, "about everything. I treated you like you were my solution for everything. I yelled at you when I should have respected you. I took your space as if it were my right, and I never ever asked you how you were or what you needed." I didn't reply. I let the silence do its work. "And I know that apologizing won't fix everything," he continued. "I know I caused damage that will take time to heal. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. I really am sorry." His voice broke at the end. "Thank you for saying that," I replied calmly. "I needed to hear it." "Do you think you can ever forgive me?" "I don't know, Marcus. Honestly, I don't know." He took a shaky breath. "But what I do know," I continued, "is that I'm not going to live the way I did before. I'm not going back to being the mother who says yes to everything. I'm not going to sacrifice my peace for your comfort." "I won't ask you to," he said. I don't know. I want to have a relationship with you. A real relationship, not one where I only call you when I need something." "I would like that," I said. "But it's going to take time, and it's going to require you to truly change, not just say you're going to change." "I'll do it," he promised. "I'll show you." We hung up shortly afterward. There were no exaggerated promises or instant reconciliation, just a small first step towards something that might one day become a healthier relationship. I stayed on the deck late that night, listening to the ocean, feeling the salty breeze on my face. For the first time in decades, I wasn't thinking about what someone else needed from me. I was just present, here, now, with myself. The following weeks established a routine that filled me with satisfaction. I woke up early and walked on the beach before the tourists arrived. The exercise was good for me. It cleared my mind and gave me energy for the rest of the day. I met other women who also walked in the mornings, women my age, some widows, some divorced, all looking for the same thing I was: peace, connection, a life of their own. We formed an informal group. We'd meet at 7, walk for an hour, and then have breakfast together at different cafes on the boardwalk. One of them was named Cecilia Caldero, a 65-year-old woman who had been a teacher for 40 years. She told me she had moved to the coast after retiring, tired of living in the city, tired of her family's expectations. "It's funny," she said to me one day over coffee. "We spend our whole lives caring for others, and when we finally decide to care for ourselves, they call us selfish." "Exactly," I replied, as if having a life of your own were a crime. We quickly became friends. Cecilia introduced me to her social circle, women who played cards on Tuesdays, went to yoga classes on Thursdays, and hosted dinner parties on Saturdays. They welcomed me with open arms. For the first time in years, I had a social life that didn't revolve around my family. I had friends who called me to hang out, not to ask for favors. I had plans I made because I wanted to, not because someone else needed them. 1 month after moving, Naomi came to visit. She arrived on a Friday afternoon with a small backpack and a radiant smile. "Grandma," she said, hugging me tightly, "this is incredible." I showed her every corner of the house. She took pictures of everything: the deck, the ocean, my room, the kitchen. Then she uploaded a photo to her social media with a caption that read, "Visiting the bravest woman I know." That night we cooked together, preparing fresh fish I had bought at the market, salad and rice. We ate on the deck, watching the sunset. Naomi told me about college, her friends, a guy she liked. It was so different from dinners at my old house. There was no tension, no silent demands, no resentment floating in the air. Just genuine conversation between two people who truly loved each other. "How is your dad?" I asked eventually. Naomi put her fork down on the plate. "He's okay, different, quieter, more thoughtful. I think he's genuinely processing what happened." "And Chantel?" "Different, too. Less, I don't know how to say it, less demanding, maybe. Like she's realized something." "I'm glad to hear that," I said sincerely. Naomi looked at me with those dark eyes so much like mine. "Dad wants to visit you, but he's afraid you'll say no." "I won't say no," I replied, "but I'm not ready yet." "I understand," Naomi said, "and he will understand too." On Saturday, I took Naomi to see my favorite spots: the artisan market, the bakery with the best pastries, the overlook where you could see the whole bay. She fell in love with the town as much as I had. "I could live here," she said as we walked along the boardwalk. "It's so peaceful, so beautiful." "Whenever you want, my love. You'll always have a room waiting for you." Naomi left on Sunday afternoon. We said goodbye with a long hug. "Take good care of yourself, Grandma, and don't let anyone make you feel bad for choosing yourself." "Never again," I promised. I watched her drive away and return to my house, feeling a mixture of nostalgia and satisfaction. Nostalgia for the days when Naomi was little and I was the grandma who spoiled her. Satisfaction because now our relationship was between two adults who respected each other mutually. 2 months after moving, I received a package in the mail. It was from Marcus. Inside was a handwritten letter and a framed photo. The photo was of Marcus when he was 5 years old. We were in a park, him mounted on my shoulders, both of us laughing. I had forgotten that photo existed. The letter read, "Mom, I found this photo while unpacking. It reminded me of who you always were to me, my refuge, my support, my everything. And it made me realize when I stopped treating you that way. I don't know at what point I started seeing you as a resource instead of a person, but I know it was wrong. I'm going to therapy. My therapist is helping me understand patterns I repeated without realizing it. Patterns of taking without giving, demanding without thanking, and assuming instead of asking. I'm not writing to ask you to come back or to forgive everything immediately. I just want you to know that I'm working on being better for myself, for Chantel, and someday, I hope, for you. I love you, Mom. I've always loved you. I just didn't know how to show it without asking for something in return. Marcus." I read the letter 3 times. I cried a little, not from sadness, but from hope. Maybe my son really was changing. Maybe walking away had been the best thing I could do, not just for me, but for him too. I took a picture of the letter and sent it to Doreen. She replied, "Real progress, but don't let your guard down yet." She was right. Real change took time. 3 months after moving, I hosted a small gathering at my house. I invited my group of friends from the boardwalk, Doreen, who came from the city, and 3 other women I had met in yoga class. We cooked together, laughed, drank wine, and shared stories. Each of us had a similar story. Women who had given so much that they had forgotten themselves. Women who had finally decided to live. "I toast to those who dared," Cecilia said, raising her glass. "To those who said enough. To those who chose peace over guilt." We all toasted. The sound of clinking glasses mixed with laughter and the noise of the sea. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone on the deck with a cup of tea. I took out my phone and opened my notes. I wrote, "Today marks 3 months since I moved, 3 months since I made the hardest and most necessary decision of my life, 3 months since I stopped living for others and started living for myself. And what I discovered is this: I am not selfish for loving myself. I am not a bad mother for setting boundaries. I am not cruel for protecting my peace. I am human. I am a woman who deserves dignity, respect, and tranquility." And finally, after 69 years, I understood it. I put away the note and looked at the dark sea, illuminated by the moon. Marcus now called me once a week. Short conversations without asking for anything, just asking how I was. There was still awkwardness between us, but there was also something new. Respect. Chantel had sent me flowers for my birthday with a card that read, "Happy birthday, Celestine. Hope you are well." It was a small but significant gesture. Naomi visited me once a month. We had become closer than ever. And I, Celestine Vance, continued to wake up every morning to the sound of the sea. I continued to drink my coffee on the deck. I continued to walk on the beach with my new friends. I continued to build a life that was completely mine. One morning, as I walked along the seashore with bare feet, feeling the wet sand, I thought about everything I had left behind and everything I had gained. I had left behind a house full of memories but empty of respect. I had left behind a version of myself that existed only to serve. I had left behind the guilt they had taught me to carry. And I had gained peace. I had gained dignity. I had gained time for myself. I had gained true friends. I had gained a life of my own. The sun began to rise on the horizon, painting the sky with impossible colors. I stopped and looked at that beauty, feeling completely present. A wave came and wet my feet. I smiled. Finally, after so many years caring for others, wondering what they needed, what they wanted, how I could help them, I was finally asking the most important question. What do I need? What do I want? How can I help myself? And the answers were simple, yet profound. I need peace. I want freedom. I can help myself by choosing me. I took out my phone and snapped a selfie with the sunrise behind me. My hair was messy from the wind, my face makeup-free, wrinkles telling the story of 69 years of life. But my eyes shone in a way they hadn't shone in decades. I sent the photo to Naomi with a message. Good morning from paradise. She replied with heart emojis, and then, I love you, Grandma. You are my inspiration. I put the phone away and kept walking, because that was exactly what I was doing now, continuing to walk forward toward the life I deserved, toward the peace I had sought for so long. At last, after so many years of being a mother, a wife, a caregiver, a savior, after so many years of being everything to everyone except myself, I was the one who decided whom to care for, and I had chosen to care for me. Did you like my story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.